Suiting his grace. Duke is one of the oldest engines on the island of Sodor. A long time ago, he worked on a little railway with Peter Sam and Sir Handel, or as they were called back then, Stuart and Falcon. Duke was named after his grace, the Duke of Sodor. He was proud of this and frowned at anything that didn't suit his grace. Engines came and went on their line, but Duke outlasted them all. Stuart and Falcon teased Duke and called him Grandpuff, but they were happy together for many years. Eventually, their line was closed down, and people came to buy Stuart and Falcon. But no one wanted Duke. They thought him too old. And so, Duke was left alone in the shed for many years. As the line faded away, Duke was never forgotten and was eventually found and brought back to Sodor. He was in the works for a long time for his overhaul. Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel visited him every day to tell him the news. Eventually, Duke was as good as new and keen to return to work. The other engines were fond of him and enjoyed hearing stories of the olden days, but they got very tired of hearing all about his grace. Regardless, Duke was a welcome sight on the narrow gauge railway, always willing to help out and never shying away from hard work. Usually, he was called upon to take over for another engine or to pull the picnic train. That was his most favorite job of all. But lately, Duke didn't seem to have enough work to do. There were more engines than ever keeping the railway running like clockwork, while Duke was left to sit in the shed, watching them happily do their work. Well, mostly happy. Sir Handel and Peter Sam overheard and were very concerned. With that, Duke faked a smile and closed his eyes for another nap. Now the two younger engines were even more worried. Later that day, they brought coal cars to the transfer yards. Skarloey, Edward, and Mr. Percival were there. Sir Handel and Peter Sam told them all about Duke. Edward told them his plan. The little engines were delighted, and so was Mr. Percival. So Mr. Percival left with Edward, and Edward took him to see Sir Topham Hatt, where they explained his plan. So the two controllers stepped into the office to make a call, while Edward's boiler bubbled with excitement. The next morning, Duke was once again dozing in his shed, dreaming of the good old days as a younger engine. But before he could dwell on it any further, as Duke's old eyes adjusted, there in front of him was Millie, the estate engine. Duke had never seen her before, and this morning he was in no mood for visitors. Duke's eyes flew open when he heard that jolly voice. He looked up, and sure enough, standing before him was Sir Robert Norramby, the Earl of Sodor, Duke's current grace. Duke wasn't sleepy anymore. The other engines giggled. They hadn't seen Duke this flustered in a long time. Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel grinned from buffer to buffer. Their plan had worked. Duke followed Millie and the Earl across the whole railway until they reached a very special place, deep in the heart of the island of Sodor, Ulfstead Castle. Once ruled by King Godred long ago, the castle has since become the home of the Earl's estate railway. As Duke approached the castle, his jaw hung open in amazement. staring in awe at the magnificent stronghold before him. Duke followed Millie inside and up to the station platform. There, waiting for him, were two of the oldest-looking engines Duke had ever seen. Duke mustered a small smile, but he didn't want to ease into things. He wanted to be really useful. As Millie and the Earl left, Duke sniffed enviously. For the rest of the day, Stephen and Glynn trundled around the estate, showing Duke everything there was to see. Duke was enjoying seeing more of the castle, but he still felt restless, more so being stuck behind the two cheeky old-timers. He was also unimpressed with the dinosaur park. Duke just groaned to himself. He had more than his fill of Stephen and Glynn's cheek. He felt even worse when he noticed Millie return with heavy freight cars of slate and ballast. The Earl was better than his word. For the next week, Duke had more work to do than he had in a long time, making multiple trips to the transfer yards and the quarry. His couplings groaned and his axles ached, and he loved every minute of it. When his driver felt he needed a rest, he took passengers on tours around the estate. The old engine was barely idle, even once. Over time, Duke grew fond of Stephen and Glynn. He still finds them a little too cheeky for his taste, but the three old-timers had become thick as thieves, especially when it came to keeping younger engines in order. At the end of the week, Duke was surprised by two visitors. Two certain cheeky visitors. Once again, Duke's old eyes twinkled as he dozed in the sun, finally confident in his place in the world.